Bassline again just released the stems to his brand new track. So what does this actually mean for you as a DJ? Well, straight away, for those of you who produce, you can go and get those stems and put them into music production software, and straight away you have access to his new track. Or if you wanted to, you could just take his drums, and now you've got Fred against drums, so you can use those to recreate a track using his drums. If you wanted to, you can now print those out and put them onto a track, and then you could layer those drums over a different track in your DJ sets if you wanted to. However, for those of you who want to be a bit more creative, you can actually now go and remix the entire track. You could take the vocals and mash it up with a completely different track. In fact, you could probably do that on your DJ decks as well. Or you could jump in and completely recreate the track in music production software. So, for example, I decided I wanted to take this track from being a hip-hop track and make it more like a house track so I could throw it into my DJ sets and it would fit better with the vibe of the music that I made. So I created this, and I'm going to play you what I've created, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did it, and I'm going to explain it to you in a way that hopefully even beginners will be able to follow along and understand what I did. So this is what I came out with.
You like food trying to sit with it, me, I'm like Wallow and Gilly with the game. You don't really want to act silly, behave. When I was on stage and the million gets made. I need that. Breeze. I feel sorry for skeptics that copy these flow, but they said that it's a new flow. Imitation don't flatter me, but it's cool though. Should've ever left the guy alone in my studio.
So there you go, that's what I created. I just took the track, made it more housey. I'm going to show you exactly how I did that, and I'm going to show you how easy and simple it is once you understand some basic concepts. Now, I'm aware that a lot of you watching this will have never done this before, and it's going to seem overwhelming. So I just want to say, if at any point in this video you're like, this is totally the kind of thing I'd love to be able to do, but I just have no idea how to do it, and I want someone to be able to show me, you could literally work directly with me, and I will literally work with you from a point of not knowing anything about music production all the way up to a point where you could be making bangers and getting your music signed to record labels. If you're interested, go to my Instagram at Philip Harris Music and just send me the word main stage, and I'll know you have come from this video, and I'll know that you'd be interested in working with me, and we can have a chat there. And if you seem like a good fit, I'll get on the phone and we can have a chat and then maybe work together. Anyway, let's actually just get straight into this. So let's get into it. I'm going to drop as many big bombs as I can in this. There's going to be some really critical information as I go through this track. So I want you to make notes, because if you master some of the stuff I teach you here, it's going to take your music production to that next level. Number one, house music in particular all comes down to the kick and the bass. You should, in all of your music, be able to turn off everything but the kick and the bass, and the room should still be moving, like boom, boom, boom. This is the sound that you would hear if you were standing outside a nightclub. You know when you're standing outside and you can hear like boom, 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 and you're like, whoa. The energy from that room is crazy. That's the kick and the bass, okay? If you get those two things right, your track is going to have so much energy and punch, and that's the thing that's going to really get the dance floor moving. So I spend about 80% of my time on the kick and the bass. Now, so let's get into it. So we've got this awesome kick here, this awesome bass. And straight away, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. I do actually go on to change the bass slightly later on, but I didn't do that at the start. I just wanted to get a bit of a housey vibe. So I went and got a house kick. I just downloaded this from a website called Splice, which is a website you can go to just download any samples you want. And I just put a kick on the top. And I was like, okay, this sounds good. I dropped the BPM from 140 down to 135. That's fast for a house track, but if I'm honest, I find a lot of my DJ sets I do at the moment, I'm playing around 130, 131, 132 BPM. If you listen to like Odd Mob, a lot of his tracks are this kind of speed now. So I was okay with making this quite fast. So I'm just covering the basics. A kick in there, and then the next thing I'm going to add in is a clap. I put the clap on every other kick. It's a strange clap, I know, it sounds kind of tinny. Once the kick and clap is in there, the next thing you want to do is you want to find a groove, okay? So this is the critical order you need to go through with your track. Kick and bass, get that right. Once you've got that right, find a groove that works well. That's the thing that's going to give your track a bit of swing, and hi-hats are the thing that does that. Now, I've got folders over here, like if I come in here and I can go to like tech house hi-hat loops and new, and I can just set them. I've got loads. I just sample through until I find one that sounds like a good fit. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but if you've got Splice Bridge, you can do the same thing. felt like it needed a little bit more. So I went and found a different percussion loop to kind of back it up. And I quickly found this, which sounds really boring by itself, but when you add it in, it suddenly adds a little bit of interest. Maybe it's just me, but I added that in as well. So I now got the kick, clap, percussion, and bass line. Now, the next thing I thought to myself was I wanted to change this bass line up to make it a little bit more housey. So this was it originally. And this is my new bass line. So all I did was I kind of made the notes sound shorter, and I did all of this in audio. So I literally went in, and as you can hear, the first note here just goes bow, bow, bow. Whereas in mine it was bow, 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 bow. So what I did is I just went and found that note. So where it goes bow, bow, bow. This note here, I just took that and I just literally copied it in and chopped it in there. So all of a sudden it now goes like that. And I just went through and I just had this kind of rhythm in my head that went do, 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 do. So I went and found those notes in this bass line and just copied and pasted them and chopped them up to sound how I wanted them to sound. And then to actually make it sound a little bit smoother and to give gaps between each bass note, I came and I just kind of filtered it out. I just literally filtered this along like this. Now, these gaps make it sound less hip hop and more housey. There's gaps in the bass line now. So that's the bass line. I'm not going to go into that in any more detail because I don't want to lose everybody's interest. So then we arrived at this point. Next thing I did was I just went and added the vocal back in at this point. So it sounded like this.
Really gets made. I need that breeze. I feel sorry for Skepta, they copy these flow, but they said that.
And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. There was something cool about the fact he went, I need that.
I need that breeze.
And I thought, something that's quite typical in house music is there's usually a bit that's pitched down. So I went, found the clip where he said, I need that. If you highlight it like this and just drag down, it cuts it into its own clip. Now, once I did that, I made sure it was on complex. I'm going into a lot of detail here. And I brought it down 12 semitones. Now it's got this kind of pitch down effect.
I need that breeze. I feel sorry for Skepta.
It's a cheap trick, but I did it and I thought it sounded pretty cool. Next thing I was like, right, what is the big stuff that needs to happen in this track to make it more housey? So I went and found myself a snare roll. Snare roll sounding like this.
With the game, you don't really want to act silly, behave. When I was on stage and the millie gets.
Again, splice. You can go and find these samples, no problem. The sample I found wasn't long enough, so I took the first 2 bars and just repeated it all the way along here. So it sounds like this.
Could have been 30, could have been a G, should have never stitched.
And I filtered it in over time. So I've just got an EQ down here, and I just took the end of one of the EQs and filtered this up over time. So you can see if I click on this and I come up to automation up over here, you can see I've just filtered this up. So now this snare drum is being filtered in.
Looking at you funny when you're walking down the street, looking at you like food, trying to see where they can eat. Me, I'm like Wallow and Gilly with the game. You don't really want to act silly, behave. When I was
which creates that very housey vibe. And I went and found a riser as well, because it works well to put a riser and a snare roll together. A riser is literally just a sound that pitches up over time. It sounds like this by itself. Add that with a filtered in snare roll, and you get this epic kind of build. The next thing I wanted to do on the build is include that bass line, because people need to know what's coming in the drop. But I wanted to filter that up as well. So I've got the same bass line playing down here. And in the same way, I've taken the low end and I'm filtering up, just like you would on your DJ decks, filtering up the low end. So again, when you put it all together, you suddenly...
don't really want to act silly, behave. When I was on stage and the millie gets made. I need that breeze. I feel sorry for Skepta, they copy these flow, but they said that it's a new flow, imitation don't.
At that point, you're well on your way to making a house track, and I've done very little so far. I've just added some drums, a snare roll, stuff like that. And so I thought at this point, I want to start adding some interesting stuff. So there was this other sound kind of quite hidden, quite low in Fred Again's track that sounded like this. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. So I did 2 things. I added it in the drop and I turned the volume up. So the drop now sounded a bit like this. But I actually just thought it sounded like it was going on for too long and it was too much. And this is a big thing when it comes to making dance music for me. Less is more. So because I really liked it, what I did is I introduced it for a bit and then took it away again. You find this happens in dance music all the time. A sound gets introduced, then taken away. You don't want to leave these obnoxious sounds in your mix for too long because it just gets tiring. It kind of creates ear fatigue. And it's just more interesting to have it added in and then taken away.
I need that. Breeze. I feel sorry for skeptics that copy these flow, but they said that it's a new flow. Imitation don't flatter me, but it's cool though. Should've ever left the guy alone in my studio. Put them in the coffin, get them out of tombstone. Yeah, I got a half.
See, it's way more interesting introducing a sound and then taking it away again. And I was like, actually, I'm going to have this in the build as well. So I had this sound here, building. And because it was such a quiet sound, I actually put a utility on it and had it turn up in volume over time. Because it's quite an intense sound, I wanted it to actually build in tension, so it gets louder throughout the build. And then one other thing I did, which I thought you'd find quite cool. I came in and I found one note of this sound. This really obnoxious note. And I thought, what if just when it's about to drop, this thing goes... So, I created this. What I did is I just literally copied this down onto its own lane. If you hit Alt, you can duplicate it down onto its own lane down here. And I just repeated it here, right? So it just went chop, 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 chop. And it sounded a bit like this. Let me add this back in. I need that. I need that. You can hear it down here. And I was like, there's something cool about that. There's something Skrillexy about it. I like that sound. And I was like, how could that sound be a little bit more interesting? So what I do is I took this sound, joined them all together, Apple J or Control J. Once it's joined all together, you can actually do this cool thing where you can pitch it up because I wanted it to go like this, right? So I came over and there's something called envelopes. You come down here, click on clips and then click transpose, and this allows you to pitch a sound up over time. So if I put a point over here to lock it in place because I want it to pitch up to that key, and I can come here and pitch it down at the beginning, now when it plays it will pitch up over time. Now the really critical thing is you've got to make sure you have this on complex, not on beat, or it won't sound the same. Right? I did that. That was the next thing I did, and I added it in, which sounded like this originally. But I realized because the final bit here sat over that pitch down vocal, didn't want the two to clash, so I just took it away when the vocal pitched down. See, at that point in the track, nothing is playing but that vocal. And these little gaps just add interest. In fact, you know what I might do as well? Come in and just turn the volume up at this point. I'm just doing it on the clip because I don't want to affect the whole lane. And so it just plays a little bit louder. And honestly, that's where I'm at with it. I just wanted to show you how simple this can really be. Now, I know you're probably sitting there. Some of you who have been producing for a long time might go, Phil, that's incredibly basic and simple. And some of you who never produced before might go, there's a lot going on there. But it's pretty cool. And obviously I haven't built the track out fully yet. Let me know in the comments if you think I should. And here's kind of like the final thing.
Should've never snitched, right? Talking to police, now they're looking at you funny when you're walking down the street, looking at you like food, trying to see where they can meet. Me, I'm like Wallow and Gilly with the game. You don't really want to act silly, behave. When I was on stage and the million gets made. I need that. Breeze. I feel sorry for skeptics that copy these flow, but they said that it's a new flow. Imitation don't flatter me, but it's cool though. Should've ever left the guy alone in my studio. Put them in the coffin, get them out of tombstone. Yeah, I got a half of the price of a kudo. Living like a boss man, nothing like Hugo. I need that good price. What the plug turn pagan tweet.
So there you go. It's really cool. Now, listen, I'm not going to go into it in more detail. I just wanted to give you some of the main things. And honestly, past this point, when you've got your build and your drop kind of sorted, bear in mind this is a remix, so a lot of the track is already done for me. It's just a case of building this out, repeating the same structure on the second drop, maybe adding some intro drums, which would just be an extension of the drums I've already got here, and building it out. I always kind of have it in my head. Once I've got a build and a drop sounding really good, the rest of the track is just repetition, right? You know, same thing for the second drop, take the drums, stretch them out throughout the track, add them in at random points. That kind of thing is going on. I'm not going to go into too much detail, although if you do want me to do further details, more masterclasses like this, I can do it. I'm going to leave you with this final thought. I always focus on the drop, right? Because if I'm going to go into a DJ set, the first thing I do is I'll go to Beatport and I'll skim through all the Beatport top 100 tracks in my genre, like tech house. And the first thing I do, I skip forward to the drop. So I don't even barely listen to the track. I skip forward to the drop and I listen to about 3 to 4 seconds of the drop and I go, is this my vibe? Yes or no? If the answer is no, I don't listen to another second of that song and I move on. Now you might say, oh, I don't do it like that, but I'm telling you I do, which means there's other DJs who do the same thing as me, right? You have to bear that in mind. So get your drop sounding big and heavy first, because if the DJs don't like the drop, they ain't playing your song, okay? Once we focused on that, then I will move back and I'll work on the breakdown and build. I want to make sure this is exciting and I want people to be like, okay, this song is exciting from the breakdown to the build to the drop. That's what I look for, and so that's what I do. Even if you're sending your songs to record labels, I want you to think, like, these record labels are probably getting 50, 60, maybe 100, maybe 200 songs a day. They're doing the same thing. They're listening to the drop, they're listening to a couple of seconds. So they're not listening to 5 minutes of drum loop at the beginning of your track, which is another reason why I say to a lot of my students, send in the radio version. The radio version of the track is the track without the drum loop intro or outro drums. Those are the extended versions of tracks which are made for DJs. So when DJs go DJing, they've got a bit of drum loop to bleed from one song to the next or blend from one song to the next. Whereas I always think, like, if I'm uploading to Spotify, if I'm sending songs off to record labels, I just go straight into the breakdown. That's the radio version of a track, okay? Now I'm kind of just monologuing at this point. But I'm hoping you find this quite interesting. It's insanely fun, this, right? What's cool about it is, like, when I go DJing, I know that what I'm doing on my DJ decks is just adding effects over the top of a track that's been made. And it's actually kind of limiting. You realize how limiting it is as soon as you get into production. And you're like, whoa, I can go into this track and just filter the bass and nothing else. And I know there's probably a couple of STEM DJs out there going, no, you can have a second track, just get the stems of the bass and then you can feel, but DJs aren't doing that, producers are doing that. I can come in here, I can add effects. If I wanted to, I could go, well, I did on the snare drum. I didn't just add a snare drum, I filtered the snare drum up, just that one element, and there's lots of stuff like that going on. You realize how detailed this is. It's very, very cool. Anyway, I'm probably rambled so long I've lost most people at this point, but for those of you who are still here, I hope this video has been useful. If you do want me to teach you how to do this stuff, just message me. I can send you some free training. I'll teach you how to make... In fact, you know what? I'll leave that in the link below as well. If you go and apply to work with me in the link below, I'll take you through to a page where I've got some free training where I'll explain this from the absolute basics, like how the program works. I'll get you making your first track in an hour. I'll just give you that free training. So that's everything. Hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to start doing videos more often now. I'm going to do one a week. And I'm just going to try and give you guys as much value as possible. It's just what I want to do. I want to just teach you. I want to be helpful. Let me know if you're interested. Ciao.